Hello, this is Rich Lavens of Watlow, and today we're going to take a look at the EPC3000 series controllers and specifically how we build up a model number. The EPC comes in three different sizes. There's the EPC3016, which is a 16th DIN, an EPC3008, which is an 8th DIN, and then the largest unit is an EPC3004, again, a quarter DIN unit. So we're going to concentrate on this little guy and build up a model code for the EPC3016. I'll create a different video for the EPC3008 and 3004. So let's jump to the model code. So this is the back of the EPC3016. So what we're going to do is we're going to designate IO number 1 and number 2. The unit always comes with IO number 3 here, and there's going to be a caveat around the FM part of the relay, and then the sensor input is down here. The option slot, basically the middle board, we can have a few different things going on here. So we could populate this with RS-232, a current transformer, and a contact closure. We could populate it with RS-485, a current transformer, and a contact closure. We can also have RS-422, which occupies the whole middle board, so that's the only option in that one. We can have a current transformer, a digital contact closure, and then either 0 to 10 or 4 to 20 milliamp remote set point input. And then the last option is we can equip it with Ethernet, true Ethernet, TCP/IP, which comes with the RJ45 port. Again, it occupies the bottom half of that middle slot. I'll show you that in a moment. And then it would come with a contact closure. So here is the model code. So up front, again, it comes in three sizes, so we would spec out EPC3016 up here. The first field is the type of control you want. So we can have this as a controller only, basically a single set point controller. You put in 500 degrees, it goes to 500 degrees and stays there until somebody changes that. Then we have some different options for ramp soak programmers. We could have option CP, which is my basic 8-segment ramp soak programmer. So one program, 8 segments. We could have a one profile 24-segment option if we select P1. P10 is 10 ramp soak programs with 24 segments per program. P20 is 20 profiles with 8 segments per program. And then the last one is FM. So the EPC3016 can be ordered as a PID controller or an FM high limit. The FM high limit, so if you ordered a CC and you wanted a P10, we could actually unlock that in the field by way of a feature passcode. So if you forgot that part of it, no problem. Get a hold of your account manager or distributor and they can get you a price on upgrading to the programmer. The FM's a different story. If you wanted FM and you forgot to order it that way, you're probably going to have to order a new controller in that there's some special hardware requirements that make it FM, and the unit is tagged with the FM stamp, so we cannot unlock that in the field. Field 2 is our supply voltage, so there's field 2. Supply voltage, basically a high voltage option, a low voltage option. So if you order VH, you have anywhere between 100 and 230 volt AC powers the unit. And if you have a low voltage option, it's 24 volt. I believe that's AC or DC. Yep. The EPC 3016 comes with 2 modular IO slots. So IO 1, you can populate it as an L2, which is a logic. That would be the same thing as the Watlow switch DC, just different terminology. We have 2 selections for a Form A relay, R1 or R2. They're exactly the same. If you order the R2, you get a little RC snubber network in the box with it. So if you're switching something that might have a switch bounce on the other end and just want to filter out that little noise spike associated with it, the snubber comes in real handy. Typically, if I'm ordering something with a relay for a customer, I specify R2. D1 is a DC output. Just think of that as an analog output that could be 0 to 20 milliamp, which is scalable, or 0 to 10 volts, again, scalable within that range. And then the last option is triac. I have a T1 or a T2, again, one with a snubber, one without. A triac effectively works like a Form A relay, except there's no moving parts, so you could switch that a little bit faster, at least from the controller aspect, without beating a relay to pieces. IO2 has exactly the same options, so I'm not going to go through that. Field 5 and 6, future options. Field 7. So if I look at serial communications protocol, well, first I actually have to equip it with serial communication. So if you leave this as XX, you're going to get Modbus. Or you can spec it out with EI Bisync, which is a Eurotherm proprietary protocol, or you could have it as a master slave. So again, you can pick this. The really important field is field 8 and 9, though. So in field 8, let's go to iTools, and I'll show you that. Field 8 is this middle board. So if I were to equip it with Ethernet, grab the wrong one here. There we go. If I select Ethernet, I'm going to get an RJ45 port. Occupies the bottom half of that middle board, and then I get an extra contact closure. If I equip it with RS485, it's going to look a little bit different. So now the bottom half of the board is where my communications go in. I also have a current transformer input and a contact closure. So in that middle board, coming back up here, you have to be a little careful how you spec that out, because you're going to have different options, and there's going to be limitations on some options based on what you order here. So that one gets a little dicey. And again, that board is something you have to order up front. It cannot be added in the field. So if you have any further questions on what options you get with the middle board, get a hold of your account manager or your distributor to have a little more explanation on that. If I order it with the Ethernet, right here, field 9, so we'll populate Ethernet again so I can show you that. There's the Ethernet. So once I have that board in place, now I can select my Ethernet communication protocol. The standard is Modbus TCP/IP. We can equip it with the Allen Bradley protocol, which is Ethernet IP, by selecting ES. We can have BACnet, and we can have Modbus Master. We can also equip the unit with a toolkit block. So toolkit blocks are features like timers, counters, totalizers, math blocks. So if you don't need that, you would order XX. If you order TK, you get a certain number of those function blocks. If you order ETK, you get a few more. So I'll put this at the end of the video so you can see what the toolkit block gets you. OEM security. The OEM security is something like, say you spent a few hours or a day coming up with a really cool configuration for this controller, and you don't want to share that with anyone else. You could order that controller with OEM security and lock that down behind a password that only you know, and now nobody can see it without that password. So it helps protect your intellectual property. In the case of 9, 10, or 11, all those can be upgraded in the field by use of a feature passcode, but remember, you have to have Ethernet for number 9. Field 12, we have different faceplates for this thing. The standard is uh, just the normal bezel with the rubber push buttons, but we do have a washdown version which has a membrane styled keypad. So again, you can wipe it off a lot easier. That is something you'll want to order up front, as again, since it's a hardware type of change, it is not field upgradable there. Field 13 and 14 are custom labels and specials, which we will entertain as long as the volume is there and we can justify the expense of the custom engineering. And then field 15, gain scheduling. So think of gain scheduling as PID sets in the Watlow world. So it comes standard with 2 sets of PIDs, but we can actually option that up to 8 by selecting that. That's a firmware upgrade by use of a feature passcode. One of the really unique things about the EPC series is in modules 1 and 2, if you ordered a logic and needed a relay, those are modular. So you could order the correct board and populate that in the field. Again, pretty easy to do, and those can be ordered as subcomponents. So again, if there's question on that, get a hold of us or your account manager or a local distributor, and they can walk you through that. So over here are those toolkit blocks. So toolkit blocks basically are math blocks, logic blocks. There's a logic 8, timers, counters, totalizers. So when you order the TK or ETK, you get a certain amount of blocks in here, which obviously I'm simulating, so I've got access to them. The second part of this model code, like right here, the main part ends at field 15. We also have an extended code, also called the quick start code. Now, normally we won't have to worry about even noting these because there's another video I did. In the field, you're going to run through the quick start at power up of this controller, and you will set these up by going through the push buttons of the controller. However, maybe you're ordering 30 of these things and you would rather have the factory set that up. Now you could go through and tell us the application, the type of sensor, the range, so forth. Once you run through these and fill this out, we would ship those 30 controllers kind of ready to go, so you wouldn't have to go through and do the quick start on every controller. Honestly, this is something that confuses people because it adds to the length of that model code, but you don't really have to tell us what's in field 16 through 28 unless you want to. And then down below, there's some accessories. So resistor packages, there's those RC snubbers I talked about, current transformers. These are not part of the main model code. These are just accessories, so they would be added as individual line items. I hope you find this video helpful, but if you have any questions, please reach out to us. Thank you so much. Bye.